Hello everyone, welcome to the Australian Worm Firm, and we have a very special guest today, David from the Weedy Garden YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's me.
And he'll be linked down below so you can go and follow his videos.
Yeah.
We're very lucky to have David passing through Adelaide today because you're on the way to a very special event. Tell us about it.
I'm on my way to Narracourt.
Yes.
To the home of Liz Pam. She was this season's winner of the Weedy Garden makeover.
Very exciting.
Yeah, so and as part of the makeover we're planting trees and putting up raised garden beds and installing bees, but we also put in a worm farm.
Very good.
And worm farm, I call that Wormville.
That's very important.
Because I call it Wormville because it's like when I make my worm farm in the bathtub,
Yep.
I kind of consider it to be like a city.
Yes, well it is.
And I fill up all the supermarkets with food, and I put all the furniture in the houses in the city, and then I bring a little busload of inhabitants, and then they just multiply.
That's it.
So I call it Wormville.
Very cool.
It's just an old bathtub.
Yep.
It's pretty simple to make. I put it up on star pickets. So I put a star picket in the ground here.
Yep.
Another one here on the corner.
Yep.
And same here.
Sure.
And another one behind here, right?
Side. And it's awesome with the recycling. You've been able to recycle the bathtub as well.
Oh yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, you don't want to go and buy a new bathtub.
No, that's it.
But it's really important to put a cross wire so it doesn't wobble, and a cross wire behind,
Sure.
at the back. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Up to there, so it doesn't kind of wobble.
Yep. Because it can get quite heavy with the extra worm castings as well.
And that keeps it stable.
Nice one.
You've got your little drain here in a normal bathtub.
Yep.
Where the water comes out.
Yes.
And you don't want all your stuff to come out. So I usually get a little bit of chicken wire.
Yep.
And I fold it over.
Sure.
And then I put a bit of shade cloth and fold that over on top, and just a rock on top of that.
Awesome.
And that keeps the worms and all the stuff from coming out.
Yep.
And the reason I lift it up is because underneath here, I put a 20-litre bucket. It's one of those 20-litre buckets, the plastic buckets from Bunnings.
Absolutely.
And with a little tap on it.
Yes.
Right? And put a couple of blessed blocks underneath so it's a little bit off the ground.
Nice one. And so you're collecting the leach shade, or the
leach
worm
shade.
shade.
I call it worm juice.
Worm juice, yeah.
Which is really all the juice from all the vegetables and
the scraps and the worm castings and all of that
and
goodness.
slime that comes off them.
That's it. And that comes through, filters down from the top when you water the farm, comes through the tap and lands in that bucket underneath.
I don't water my farm though. Maybe a bit of water does get in because I've got a post down here.
Yep.
Into the ground.
Sure.
And then I've got a little hinge like a gate hinge.
Yes.
Screwed onto a bit of corrugated iron.
Absolutely.
And that corrugated iron kind of lays. How are we going to draw? I'm not a very good drawer. I'm a better photographer than I'm a drawer.
We like challenging your skills on this channel.
You can imagine you've got a bit of corrugated iron that you can kind of lift it over a stick, so when I open it up, I put my stick on.
Almost like a lid sort of thing.
Yeah, and that keeps the rain off because where I am in the northern rivers, it's raining a lot.
Really wet.
So it does get very muggy.
That's it. Whereas if you're out this side of things where it's quite hot and dry, so Narracourt or out here in Adelaide, the issue often is you're losing too much moisture.
So you might have to water a bit.
That'd be correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't want it to dry out.
No, that's really important.
And so what I think the best thing to do would be to put a little layer of cocoa peat on the bottom.
Yes.
And that was when I did mine. I put cow manure.
Sure.
I just put cow manure because the cows are on my farm.
Yeah,
so there's plenty of cow manure.
Yes.
And it's important not to. Well, when I did mine, you put layers on. You put a layer of green and a layer of brown. Is it like a 50-50?
50-50 is what I'd be
green and brown.
Yeah.
And when I say green and brown, I mean like grass is green when it's freshly cut.
Yep.
But if you leave it on the ground for a couple of days, it becomes brown.
That's it.
And then it becomes a brown.
Sure.
And cow manure is actually brown, but it's actually green.
Yes.
So
I've got a fun one for that.
What's that?
Greens, soft and squishy and wet.
Yeah.
Browns are dry and crumbly.
Yeah.
Right.
But even a dried cow manure is green, isn't it?
That's a tough one, cow manure. I catch
really
people out every time I do a workshop of the manure one, catches them out.
But having worm farm is the best way to just, you got fertiliser on tap.
That's it.
And it's a really good fertiliser.
That's it.
It's just kitchen scraps. And I put all sorts of stuff in mine. I put coffee grounds.
Yep.
There's a little cafe just down the road from me, so I go and collect the coffee grounds every week.
That's it.
And just scraps from the garden.
That's it.
Food that
Scraps.
I don't
Almost any organic waste, isn't it, really? That's the beauty of it. You can put, and as long as you balance, as we said, sort of that 50-50 greens and browns, give or take. So each time you put in a handful, say, of coffee grounds, you just put in a handful of some brown dry leaves, for example. Or you might put in some straw, something like that.
Yeah.
Some waste straw out of the
It's a
garden.
good idea not to just put your grass clippers.
That's it.
It's all bloody
Claggy. Yes. If you put in grass clippings, but then you dry out the other half of it, you can do that.
Yeah.
So if you're into lawn mowing,
you've only got grass,
yes,
and you've got nothing else, then mow the lawn, put half in, and then let the rest sit for a couple of days.
That's it.
Rake it together, and then it'll be grand.
So every lawnmower guy can run a worm farm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had mine for 4 years, and they've just been there and they multiply.
They just thrive.
They do.
Yes.
Do they eat their own waiting food every day?
Every day in laboratory conditions they can. So that's pretty fast production. So the one you're taking to the Wormville at Narracool,
yeah,
you're taking a kilo,
yeah,
up to a kilo a day.
Yeah,
that ham's going to be able to recycle from the day you arrive.
yeah.
And as they multiply, so they can multiply up to double in 3 months.
Yeah.
That's laboratory conditions again. Yeah. So you give it a bit more time, but should be feeding 2 kilos, say in 6 months' time.
But if you're just putting in like, if you're not putting in 2 kilos, and you've got 2 kilos of worms, the worms will kind of adjust. It's like
That's right.
It's like the population.
That's it.
If there's plenty of food in the shops, we go crazy.
Yes.
If there's less, then we drop quiet down a bit, and they don't make babies as often and so on.
That's correct.
So they'll kind of look after it. It's not they're not going to die.
No.
They're just going to kind of slow down in reproduction.
That's it. And they'll also spread out to cover the surface area of the bathtub. So the one other bit I'd throw in there with the bathtub is because it's so much bigger with the surface area, as opposed to running something like a small worm farm, you've got so much more capacity. So with a place like Pam's, that's a nice big size, she's going to have so many, clippings and prunings and things. It'll keep up with the volume that she's producing.
Yeah.
So
when I made mine the first time, I put in some cow manure in the bottom, and then I put a layer of greens and browns and greens and browns and greens and browns and greens and browns, and I filled it all the way up. And then I put my worms on top.
Yes.
And then I came back the next day, and I looked at it, and it's like, oh no, it was composting, and it was getting hot.
Awesome composting.
And I thought that my worms were all going to perish, but they're pretty smart, the worms.
They are.
They just all crawled out to the side.
Yes.
And hung around the side.
They do.
Until it cooled down.
Yes.
And then they kind of moved back.
Go back in. And that's the other beauty with a big system is it's more forgiving.
There's enough room for them to find their sweet spot.
That's it.
Worms
they'll jump out.
They'll leave.
That's it.
Worms like 37 degrees, don't they?
Top temperature.
Yeah.
So the ones we're doing today for South Australia, we're doing tigers, red ribbons, and blues.
Yeah.
So their top is close to 30 odd. Is their preference.
Right.
When you go up to the tropics or Nimba and so forth, a lot of people use African night crawlers and they like that tropical temperature.
Okay, I've got tiger worms in
Tiger worms, and they can also adapt over time. So these ones are used to our cooler climate, so they'll be quite happy staying under 30 degrees.
Yeah.
And so try not to have too much scraps in there from day one.
Yeah.
Just keeps it cooler so we don't cook them out.
That's what I learned. Is you put your base down in your cocoa peat, and then you put a little bit of stuff.
A little bit at a time.
Instead of filling the whole thing up with greens and browns,
yes.
you put a little bit in,
That's
and you put your worms in, and then slowly.
They keep up with it.
Yeah.
So you've ended up with a kilo of worms to start off your bathtub, and we reckon that's probably about right. You can start with a bit more or a bit less, and they'll just breed up to the number you want. But that's a pretty good starting number, 4,000.
You know, Pam, she's got goats.
Yes.
And she feeds them hay.
Yep.
So in the goat pen there's goat poo and hay. And what's that? That's greens
and browns in fairly equal quantities.
Yeah. So we're just going to rake that together, and that's going to be what we're going to start them off.
And that's a relatively cold manure. So the beauty of your goat and rabbit is another one, guinea pig.
Yeah.
So they're called cold manures because they don't heat up the same way that, say, horse or cow might.
Yeah.
So if you're doing horse and cow by volume, which is fine, and you can do that in the bathtub, I would have a pile over here where we pile it up with the greens and browns in layers.
And let it compost a bit.
Let it compost itself for, doesn't have to be long, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Get the most of the heat out of it so it cools down to a point where you put it in here, it's not going to reheat again. So it just goes a little bit crumbly, a little bit browner, and then when you pop it in here, the worms will fly through it.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the one way that, especially in hotter climates, we can still fly through the product, just a two-step process.
Okay.
And it gives you a way to avoid the risk of putting too much in.
Yeah. Or you can just put a little bit in that time.
A little bit at a time. It's perfectly fine.
It could be Philip's little job is to go and give him a couple of handfuls every morning.
That's it. Easy. As you pick up,
now he's got to feed the dog and feed the chickens and feed the goats and feed the worms.
That's the one. We've got it.
Another additive to the animal kingdom now.
That's it. But look at the awesome cycling. So you've got the worms. They're going to grow potentially plants that the goats might eat. The goats are going to then produce the manure. The manure will be recycled and it goes back into the worm farm. So there's your recycling.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I've made a few videos on my channel.
Yes.
About how to build these ones.
And feel free to go follow the Weedy Garden on YouTube as well. There's some awesome content there.
Yeah.
So go and give that a follow. Join about 250,000 people on there.
It's entertaining.
It is entertaining.
It is entertaining.
Definitely worth a follow. And if you're into the permaculture stuff, get onto it.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thanks for the worms.
Enjoy it. Appreciate your time.
Pam's going to love those.
She is going to love them.
Yeah.
And hope you enjoy the whole setup.
They've got a long drive ahead of them.
They do. They'll make it.
Yeah.
You'll be right.
They'll make it.
Air conditioning.
I'll turn the aircon in the car.
That's it.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Awesome.
See you, everybody.
See ya.